Busy day for our governor. She will have a 10:30 press conference this morning, which is probably where she will finally make the announcement we know she'll be making, that the school year is over, in line with Dr. Vitti had wished for and so many others, so they know exactly what's going on. Seniors will graduate. Students will move up to the next grade if they were on track to do that. School year will remain financed for the school year, and whatever else she'll have for it at 10:30 this morning, and we should have that for you here on WJR. Later today in Oakland County, you might get a call from Sheriff Michael Bouchard. He's got a phone conference going on at 4:30. After that, at 7 o'clock, there'll be the WJR Town Hall. WJR will be broadcasting the Town Hall at 7 with all of the folks involved on that the governor has asked for. The governor's town hall is what it's called. And then after that, at 8 o'clock, CNN will have a global town hall. So it's a big day of information. And a guy who's been very helpful to us with information throughout this whole period of time, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, is at it again to help us understand a few things going on. Senator Shirkey, let me thank you again for your help this this week when we talked about Kathy Hoekstra's letter, opinion letter in the Detroit News, and the LARA, the memo that went out about using or not using hydroxychloroquine, and some confusion in that. We had Gary Miles, the editor and publisher of the Detroit News, on today. He mentioned you in his kind of rebuttal or opinion piece, and again I thank you for your help with that. You're all over this stuff, Senator, and we appreciate it. That there's another bit of information out there that's confusing to people, as the governor yesterday formally declared a disaster. And I don't understand the timing of all this stuff. I thought we were long declared a disaster, but that's another story. The same thing went with the FEMA money, waiting. We didn't know they waited so long or why, whatever. But whatever the case, one of the things that came out of this disaster proclamation was the seeking of a 70-day extension of the emergency, state of emergency that we are currently in. And a lot of people are confused about that. Now, first of all, I know you're not supportive of the 70 days. But first of all, just that didn't mean she was suggesting we were going to have to self-quarantine and physical distancing for the next 70 days, or an extension of 70 days, correct?
That's correct, Paul. I hope you can hear me now.
I can.
The change in the declaration to include disaster provides for a bit more cover for the announcement that she's likely to make today regarding schools. And you are absolutely correct. The request for 70 days does not necessarily transfer to include 70 days of a stay home, stay safe order. We made it clear in our response that we understand the request. We understand the need for the change in the wording of the declaration so she can make a few more decisions this week. We don't agree with the 70 days. We think that a more measured approach is appropriate, and we're negotiating that now. And we strongly made it clear that we don't think that anybody should be inferring that 70 days or whatever we decide to do necessarily transfers to the stay home, stay safe order. And so we're in the middle of negotiating that now. As you know, the legislature is required and authorized to offer an extension of the original emergency order, and we intend to do that next Tuesday in session at the end of the current or the initial one. And as I said a moment ago, we are negotiating right now on a more measured approach.
In as concise and simple of terms as you can do it, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, tell us why she's asking for 70 more days and why you're against 70 more days.
Paul W., you and all your listeners will concur with what I'm about to say. We learn a lifetime of new learnings in this current new reality that we're in every 24 hours. Things change quickly and dramatically, sometimes for the worst and oftentimes for the better. And as time goes on, I believe the latter will be more frequent than the former. And so we are not saying or suggesting that we may not need to go for 70 days, but we do not need to send that signal to the people in the state of Michigan right now because, frankly, it's just not warranted. We understand the need to continue to be in our stay home, stay safe mode, expressing and practicing extreme hygiene and social distancing, but I don't think it would be prudent nor a good solid message to the state of Michigan for us to go to that extreme right now, and that's the rationalization for our current position.
In the yesterday's Free Press, Paul Egan saying even if the legislature does not pass the resolution to extend it 70 days, this current power, the governor could continue to exercise emergency powers using the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act. Unlike the Emergency Management Act, it does not require legislative approval if an emergency extends beyond 28 days. However, the Emergency Powers of the Governor Act gives the governor a narrower range of powers and is more focused on control of public safety, buildings, and transportation than on the full range of state government services. That being said, well, go ahead.
2 important points. Paul is technically correct, but we have been demonstrating, I believe, to the state of Michigan a terrific partnership throughout the experience that we are in right now between the governor's office and the legislature. I think it's best for the entire state that we maintain that relationship, and that's the reason why I think she wants us to take action, and that's the reason why we're in the middle of negotiating some final terms here. We do not want to send a signal to the rest of Michigan that now we're fighting between us. That's not appropriate. It wouldn't be helpful, and that's the reason why we have been standing like we have.
What would be the downside if you just let it go for those 70 days with those powers she's asking for?
Well, the downside is, I believe, right now, I think we're dealing with as much of a problem of mental health, hope, anxiety, depression, etc., as we are the physical conditions of the virus. And so we're trying to balance not sending a depressive signal to people while also reserving the opportunity to continue to maintain that stature if it's deemed warranted as we learn new things.
Quick question. What's your take, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, on Vice President Joe Biden saying on television the other day that, in fact, our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, was on his short list for the last couple of months for vice presidential candidate, running mate?
Well, before I get off the phone, I'll answer your question, but I also want to say a cup of Joe and dose of Paul. Good morning to you. And with regards to your question about Joe Biden, anybody who's paying attention to the national media and the presidential race on that side of the political spectrum, if you can explain to me what comes out of his mouth half the time, I'd be interested in hearing you.
Well, let me tell you something. Last night, he was on the Jimmy Fallon show, and this was recorded after he made that comment that she was on the short list. And I don't know if it was his cognitive struggles. I presume it was, but he mentioned a number of Democrat and Republican governors who were doing a great job for their state, and he did not mention our governor. And I don't know if it was his cognitive problem or if he feels that that would point out too much that he is leaning toward her as a pick. You're right. I mean, somebody can tell me what he was thinking because I don't think he knows what he was thinking.
I think not responding to what you just described is the most appropriate response.
Okay. All right. God bless you. Anything else that we need to know, Senator?
No, I just encourage, first of all, thank you for continuing your nice, calm, sound voice and the consistent messaging, as I've always been supportive of you and WJR. And secondly, there are some strong indications that we're not at the peak yet, and it's going to be a couple more weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. But there are other indications of suggesting that the fantastic innovation and creativity of the American spirit is quickly catching up, and the exponential curve of those developments will soon overcome the exponential curve of this virus. And then we'll be able to stand tall with our hands on our hips saying, we can because we're Americans.
Well put, Mike. I really appreciate that and salute the great job you've been doing. But by the way, a quick question, and it's apparently Mark Cuban and I are of like minds on this, and I don't know if we are on anything else, but this COVID-19 pandemic is a crisis that robots were built for. We used to hear so much about what robots could do and what they were doing. Could you look into that and find out Where the heck are all these robots that could be doing things that currently humans, nurses, technicians, doctors are doing that put them at risk, and a robot could do without any problem at all and no risk? Where are the robots?
Yeah, I have complete confidence that that's not in the not too distant future for all of us. But for one thing, I am going to fight with everything I have to make sure that there's no robot that replaces you.
Okay. Boy, you got all the right answers this morning, Senator. God bless you. Thank you.
Have a great day, Paul.
You've had your cup of joe. Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey here on the Paul W. Smith Show, WJR.